It's back. The ADHD Women's Palooza returns with new topics, new experts, and information you need about your ADHD, like about perfectionism and being twice exceptional, gifted plus ADHD, your diagnosis, past and future, and a radical new approach to treatment for ADHD women you'll hear right here at the Palooza, plus dozens more from the cream of the crop ADHD experts. You want cutting-edge information? You're in the right place. Our next Palooza session starts right now. Hi, everybody. Welcome back to the ADHD Women's Palooza. I am so thrilled that you have joined us because what we're going to talk about this session is something that I'll bet all of you need to do to get to my favorite four-letter word, D-O-N-E. Yay, done. We actually can get stuff done. But of course, getting stuff done means that we have to start those things. So we're going to talk about motivation, initiate, all kinds of cool stuff today with my dear friend Sharon. But first, let me just tell you who I am. I'm Linda Rogley, just in case this is your first experience with the Palooza. I'm the co-founder of the Palooza with my dear friend Terry Matlin, and she is one of our guests this week as well. We have a fabulous lineup, as you've been aware this week, and you can hear all of these speakers, all of today's speakers, for 24 hours absolutely free, or 24 hours or till midnight tomorrow night, whatever comes first in your time zone. Also want to mention to you that you can, if you choose to, you can buy all these sessions because you may want to hang on to them. It's less than $100 for more than 30 sessions, which is what, $3 a session? I mean, something like that. I don't know. I'm not going to work with my math today because I have ADHD, right? So I don't have to be good at math. We also have the ADHD Women's Pink Ticket Affair on Saturday. That's an opportunity for you to interact live with me and with some of our guests as well. And here's the important thing. You actually get to talk to each other. And sometimes I think that we are our own best experts, because if you live with ADHD every single day, as I do, sometimes it just feels good to talk to someone who gets it and who also shares some of the same frustrations and some of the joys and some of the exhilarations as well. So I neglected to mention that the Encore package this year includes not only the video, which you're looking at now, but includes the audio in case you'd like to put it into your phone and listen to it as a podcast, which is perfectly fine. But we also have transcripts for the very first time. We did not raise the price. You're going to get that extra bonus. And it's not a verbatim transcription, but at least it captures the essence of what our speakers are discussing. So let's just not talk about that anymore. Let's talk about what we came to hear about, which is you can do it. And the person who's going to give you all that wonderful information is sitting here with me, Sharon Saline. Hi, Sharon. How are you today?
Hi, Linda. How are you? It's so great to be here.
Yeah, I'm feeling a little like a little scattered all of a sudden, but I think that's just part and parcel of being ADHD. You know, I'm focused, then I'm not. Focused, then I'm not. But
yes,
right now, I'm here.
I'm sorry. Things out.
Absolutely, I'm fine. I did a little breathing. So I don't want to hear from me. I want to hear from her. So let me just tell you who she is first, because I always read these bios because I need to make sure that you hear everything that's pertinent about them. This is Sharon Saline. She's a PsyD, a clinical psychologist and author of the forthcoming book, What Your ADHD Child Wishes You Knew, working together to empower kids for success in school and in life. And isn't that what we want for our kids, no matter whether they have ADHD or not? She specializes in working with kids, young adults, and families living with ADHD, learning disabilities, and mental health issues. Her unique perspective as a sibling in an ADHD home, combined with decades of experience in clinical psychology, as an educator and a clinician's consultant, helps her guide families and adults toward effective communication and closer connection. Sometimes that can be difficult. She lectures and she facilitates workshops on topics such as understanding ADHD, executive functioning. We've heard a lot about that this week. Different learners and the teen brain. I don't know. I think that's a whole different concept over there, the teen brain. Even when I was a teenager, you know, when I was 17, I thought I knew everything there was to know. It's like, why am I here? You know, it's like, and then I learned, then I got smarter and found I didn't know anything. She is a magna cum laude graduate of Brown University. She got her master's degree in psychology from New College in California and her doctorate in psychology from the California School of Professional Psychology. We'd like to welcome, yay, Sharon Saline. We're so glad you're here.
Thank you so much for having me. I just want to add that actually my book is out.
Oh.
is available. It's not forthcoming. I guess there was a typo that I missed.
Apparently so.
But it came out in August.
Oh,
So
cool.
it's available. You can buy it on Amazon, Barnes and Noble, at your local bookstore. And
Great.
if that is relevant to the people who are listening and watching today.
Well, let's face it here. This is about women, and there are probably more moms than not. I mean, I'm a mom, but my kids are older, but now I have grandchildren. So now I'm a grandparent. So all of those things are pertinent. And I think that we all, as I mentioned, really want to help our kids succeed in school, no matter where we are in that lifespan. So let's talk about getting things done. I know that sometimes I really have trouble getting things done. So why is it a specific issue with ADHD, and probably with ADHD women, to tell you the truth?
Well, that's a great question. So one of the reasons that it's hard to get things done is that interest fosters motivation. ADHD brains need for things to be engaging for them to accomplish them. Yeah. So because there are lower amounts of dopamine or norepinephrine in ADHD brains, the reward systems don't function at the same efficiency as they do in neurotypical brains. And so it makes it harder to muster up the energy for things that you don't like to do. And when a task is fundamentally unrewarding or uninteresting, the way that you might perceive cleaning out the litter box or a closet that's cluttered, you don't really feel excited to do it. And because of the lower amounts of dopamine in the adult ADHD brain, it takes you longer than your non-ADHD peers to get moving. And for women in particular, as they head towards menopause and the hormonal changes further affect the brain chemistry, the motivation issue becomes much more important, because the dopamine levels are even further compromised during that process of going through menopause. I went to see Russell Barkley one time many years ago, and he said that women who are, perimenopausal, or in menopause, actually their brains can look like ADHD brains because of what's happening chemically. So I think that's really important for us to hold on to here when we're talking about motivation.
Okay, well, so is motivation just that I want to do something, or that I can force myself to? What exactly is motivation? Let's talk about that.
Interesting. Yeah. So I think motivation is about believing that you can do something and having the skills to get there.
Okay.
So there are two kinds of motivation that we have. there was what we call intrinsic and extrinsic motivation. Extrinsic motivation is the source of the motivation is outside of you. So for example, if you're speeding and you get a ticket, you'll learn that I don't want to speed because I don't want to get a ticket. You're motivated externally. I'm going to drive the speed limit because I don't want that negative consequence, right?
Got it.
Internal motivation, intrinsic motivation is internal motivation. I want to do well. I want to write a good report because it feels good when I do a good job, versus I want to write a good report because I want a raise. That also can feel good, of course, but that's extrinsic. It's outside of you. And interestingly, what develops first is extrinsic motivation. That's why kids always need incentives to do things. Intrinsic motivation really doesn't kick in until around the early 20s. And for ADHD brains, a little bit later than that.
Okay, so I was just thinking about your example about not speeding so you won't get a speeding ticket, but I don't know that applies to ADHD, because we forget. And we just think we have to get there because we're running late all the time. But let's go back to intrinsic motivation.
It depends how many speeding tickets you get.
That's exactly right. And where's that insurance points? I know, I got it. So let's talk about intrinsic. I mean, which of these is more difficult or less difficult for ADHD? Or are they equally difficult?
They actually one leads into the other.
Okay.
You start with extrinsic motivation. So let's say you have to clean out the litter box and you're not super excited to do it, but your favorite show is on at 9 o'clock. You tell yourself, okay, I'm going to clean out the litter box so I can watch my favorite show. That you set up a motivation for yourself. You set up an incentive. And we do that when we teach kids how to motivate, but we also have to do that for ourselves with things we don't like to do.
Got it. Okay. So
Because
are incentives the same as rewards? Is that what I'm hearing?
incentives are sort of like carrots, yeah.
Oh, okay. Got it.
But the thing is that ultimately you clean out the litter box because you want to clean out the litter box, right? You don't like the smell. You don't like, whatever other things are associated negatively with the litter box. So you do that because it feels good to clean out the litter box. And there are some times where you just don't feel like doing it. And that's when you have to use extrinsic motivation. I have to clean out the litter box. I want to watch my show. I can't put it off anymore. I'm going to do the litter box and then do my show. That's my promise to myself. And if I have a partner, I'm going to tell my partner that this is my promise to myself, so they can support me in getting it done. So that's why it's important to understand as adults what kinds of things would be good incentives for us. Mm-hmm. Incentives really matter. So, for me, I might like to, I really like to exercise in the morning. Mm-hmm. And when I don't exercise in the morning, I'm kind of cranky for the rest of the day. Mm. So the motivation for me to get up earlier, which I don't like to do, is that if I don't exercise, I'm going to have a cranky day. And so I have to really tell myself that. I have a little Post-it next to my bed. Get up or you'll be cranky. And so that's I have to set up that motivation, that incentive, that the reward for exercising is I'm happier throughout the day, and that's meaningful to me.
So you have an external reminder of an intrinsic motivator.
Yeah, they kind of
exactly.
But generally, exercise is an intrinsic motivator would be I feel good when I exercise.
Yeah.
Right? I enjoy the process of that, which is true. But it's hard on a rainy, cold day like it is right now in New England to kind of get out of bed early and do it.
Absolutely.
So extrinsic motivators lead to intrinsic motivation, mm-hmm. and intrinsic motivation develops over time.
Okay, so are there things about the ADHD brain that slows down that intrinsic kind of motivation? Because I'm thinking back to your litter box example. Yeah. One of the rewards is not having a smelly litter box. So that's but it's not enough of a reward to motivate you to do it when you're just like, oh man, I have to do this every day, 2 days, whatever the time is. So is our rewards, I know our reward system is different because of the dopamine issues. So correct. What is it about the ADHD brain or executive function that intersects with motivation?
That's a great question. So the ADHD brain is a now, not now brain. Yeah. If it's fun to do now, we're going to do it. If it's not so fun to do now, I'm going to put it off. Mm-hmm. And the problem is that you keep putting things off, and then the litter box is truly disgusting. So, I had one woman say, I keep putting off my laundry until it took me all day to do my laundry. And that was very unpleasant for her. And so we had to really break it down. So there are several executive functioning skills that are linked to motivation that help people with ADHD get over that hump that, I really don't want to do it. Mm-hmm. And so you've been talking about, as you said, executive functioning skills all week, but let's identify which ones go with motivation, okay? So the first one is initiation, getting started on something, how you can do that without direction and excessive reminding, mm-hmm. how you're motivated to begin a task. Mm-hmm. This is a huge issue for people with ADHD, because if you have a now, not now brain, and the now it's not something that's pressing right now, it's going to be a lot harder for you to get that motivation up to do it. So you can have an extrinsic motivation, whether you're going to go out on a date or you're going to go see a movie, or you reward yourself with something or you make a beautiful cup of tea and have a lovely cookie, whatever it is. But you still have to be able to get yourself to do it. And the thing that gets in the way of initiating any tasks for anyone, with or without ADHD, but mm-hmm. especially true for people with ADHD, is the size of the task. One of the main reasons people don't get started, i.e. procrastinate, is because the task is too big and it has to be smaller. smaller, smaller, smaller until you can do it. And I have, you know, women in my practice and men as well who laugh at me. And I say, it's still too big. And they'll say, oh no, it's just, you know, it's just, I carry the litter over to the litter box. I'm like, yeah, that's it. That's your task for today. You take the litter and you take it over to the litter box. And they're looking at me like I'm insane. I said, all we want to do is get you started on the process. So then the next day, you can do the next step. You take the litter out of the litter box. The litter bag is whatever it is. This is sort of a long metaphor, you know, but you know what I'm saying? Like you make the steps smaller so you feel like you can accomplish it. Usually the reason people don't start things is because the task seems too big. That closet that's packed with stuff that you don't know what you want to do with, you don't even bother opening it because things will fall out or it seems overwhelming. I encourage you to keep one hand on the door, pull out one thing from the closet. That's a small way to get started, right?
Yeah, yeah,
so
absolutely.
we want to break it down. The other thing is how you approach tasks. So some people, and this is true for we have people watching who are in college or people who are, have work projects to do, how we approach a task also affects our ability to get started. Mm-hmm. So some people like to do something easy first, get in a flow, and then do the harder thing, and then do the medium thing, right? Okay. Some people like to do the hardest thing first, then do the easy thing, and then do the medium thing. The medium thing is always sort of last. Yeah. Or some people like to do, you know, the hard thing, the medium thing, and then save the easiest for last. It just depends on what works for your personal flow. It's important to sit down and think about that. Like, do I like to do that hard thing first and get it over with, and then I have the fun things after? Or do I like to do something fun or easier first that gets me in the flow? So I'm not going to go right to the litter box. Instead, I'm going to just, you know, do something that's easier for me, like walk around the house with all the trash cans and empty them into one trash can. Something like that. So it's really important for people to understand, what order do I like to do things in?
So tell me how you can figure that out. I mean, I know you said to think about it, but I'm not sure exactly how to figure that out for myself or to help anybody else.
I think that's a really good question. It's interesting because I'll ask people, do you like to be in a flow, or do you like to tackle something hard right first? So when you're facing a task you don't like, is it easier to attach it to something you've already done? Or is it easier just to start with that hard task? And that's, I think, the important question that you want to ask. Do I prefer to be in a flow and then tackle the hard thing? Or do I want to just tackle that hard thing right off? I can muster up the energy to do that. That's how people decide that question.
All right. I'm just thinking back to how my financial life, I just am redoing it and getting it in better order and that kind of stuff. And when I'm in it, I'm like, I really like doing this. I really like it. And then I have to go to bed, or I have to do something else, the dogs bark or whatever. And then getting back to it is really difficult for me. And it's like, I'll do it. I'm going to do. And then I really literally have to force myself to sit down and do this. And so I guess what I'm describing is, I guess I do the hard stuff first. I guess I just force myself right into the middle of it, and knowing that once, I call it that slippery slope, that kind of a sheer mountain drop, if you will, and you got to have some kind of handhold to get into it. And I guess for me, I just need to delve right into it. What you're saying in that instance, someone else might do something like, I don't know, organize papers, or what would the easy part of that be, for instance?
If you're dealing with financial matters, and you're at your, you know, one person might actually do something like entering their checks, you know, into their QuickBooks or something, or clicking on their bank account and seeing that their checks have loaded, just sort of, you know, moving around QuickBooks to see what's in there. That's how they would get started, rather than, you know, budgeting.
Okay, got it. All right. So where do we go from here? Once we figure this out,
so then we have to decide. We go into prioritizing.
Okay.
We have to decide what's most important, what goes first, what goes second, etc.
Oh, that's hard for us.
That is so hard for people with ADHD. And it's hard because it has to do with time and values. So if something has a time limit, That puts it into the front of the line.
Yeah.
And if something is deemed, important, like I have to do this or there's a negative consequence. I have to pay my taxes, for example, or I need to send a check, my rent check, or I'm going to, be kicked out of my apartment, right?
Yeah.
Those things are both urgent. They have a time, a time pressure, and they're important. And those come to the front of the line. So those are easy. And the thing is, for prioritizing, it's also related, of course, to organization. There's no way around making lists. When you prioritize, what I encourage people to do for prioritizing is to sit down and basically do a brain dump. Make a list of all the things they have to do. Don't order them. Then look through the list and say, okay, what has a time pressure? And check those. And then go through and say, which ones also have this value that I deem is important. It's urgent and I decide that it's important to do. I X those. So then you go back and you look at the things that are checked and X'd, and you make another list and you put those on the top. That's enough usually.
Yeah.
That's enough. And
that's usually even that part's this big, right?
That part is huge. Exactly. So, there are other things that are urgent but not important, and things that are important, not urgent. It's that whole Eisenhower matrix. Yeah. But right now, if we're talking about motivation, I just want to get you to do the stuff that is urgent and important, because that's where people with ADHD get stuck. They can't even get started on those things. All those other things that aren't so important, they're not even in the picture. Right?
Or we do something that's not important because we're avoiding doing the other thing.
That is a separate and very common, that's a separate issue and a very common behavior. But we want to keep the focus on the things that are urgent and important.
Okay.
And because otherwise you'll be surfing the net looking for those red corduroys instead of, planning your budget for the next year.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So then this leads us to time. How do we?
Well, let's back up. One more thing about priorities.
Yeah.
My experience, and maybe I really like your idea of writing everything. I like to do brain dumps as well. So I like your idea of dumping everything out so you can kind of see it out there. Exactly. When I don't have that, or some of my clients don't have that kind of visual cue, if you will, sometimes I'll wander around and everything looks equally important to me. Yes. So I know there's urgency, but everything's important. So how do we kind of help the ADHD brain through that piece, if you have some suggestions?
When everything looks important,
yes.
The determining factor is time sensitivity.
So it's an overlay then.
Exactly. So we have important, and then we lay on top of it time sensitivity. Okay. And those things come to the top.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate you clarifying that for me.
No problem. I'm glad. I think it's a really important question for people.
Got it.
When we are talking about time, we also have to talk about time management, because how people manage their time or don't manage their time is really an issue with motivation, right? Mm-hmm. And so one of the things that I see people struggling with, I see two things. One of incorrectly estimating how long something will take. So they either think something will take less time than it actually takes, or they think it will take way more time, so they can't get started. Okay. So the two sides of the inaccurate time assessment really stumps people. How do you learn to estimate time? Now, there are two ways to do this. One is through experience. You can be someone who notices how long it takes you to drive from your house to the office, and you write it down on a Post-it, and you're like, it takes me 35 minutes. And then you plan for 35 minutes, but you hit 10 minutes of traffic one day and you're late. That lets you know that you have to calculate your estimation.
Got it.
But I think that the best way to teach time management is through backwards design. And that means that you start with the time that you want to get to your office. You want to get to your office by 9 o'clock. And then you go through the things that you do every morning, right? I have to take a shower. So I get dressed and to put my makeup on, and that will all take me 25 minutes. So now you're already at 8:35. And I like to wake up and lie in bed for 15 minutes and hit the snooze button. Okay, so we're going to subtract those 15 minutes. And you keep going until you run out of things that you need to do. And then that's the time when you have to wake up. And so
1:30 in the morning is probably
exactly. I hope not. Oh my God, that'd be awful. I would hate that. But that's how you approach projects like that in the same way.
Okay.
It's harder with projects because you don't often know how long something will take you, right? So what you have to do instead is estimate chunks of time to work. And that actually relates to another executive functioning skill that has to do with motivation, which is sustained attention. So one way that you can manage attention and resist distractions is by chunking the amount of time you work. So you have a piece of work to do. You don't know how long it's going to take you. That's difficult. But you do know that you have 2 hours before lunch. Okay. How do you want to budget your time? Usually, the first thing you have to do is ask yourself, how long can I work before my mind goes to the Bahamas? Yeah. So most adults with ADHD have some awareness, even I've seen this with kids, teenagers, when they drift off. That drifting off is your sign that your brain needs a break. And how long a break is up to you. Some people just need a 5-minute break to walk around, go to the bathroom, wash their hands. Some people need a 10-minute break. They go to they get a cup of coffee. You have to be careful. The longer your break, the harder it is to get back into what you're doing. So what I suggest people do is they take their 2 hours and they say, okay, I can work for 30 minutes. I take a 5-minute break. I work for another 30 minutes. Then I take a 10-minute break because my brain is tired. Then I go back and I work another 20 minutes or 30 minutes, take a 5-minute break, and then I get to the 2-hour mark. And when you break it down like that, you actually can feel more in charge of how you're working and that you're working toward the goal successfully.
Okay, so lots of things are coming up for me, and I just want you to know that we haven't worked together like this yet, but we are. It's the beginning of a great relationship.
Fantastic.
So I am the devil's advocate sitting over here in black.
I love it.
And number one, if I take a 5-minute break, I may easily get distracted. I don't care if it's 2-minute break. I can easily get distracted by something, and then my brain, even though I know I need to do this, and it's not procrastination, I kind of forget that I'm supposed to be coming back because suddenly I'm into something else or something, or I get a phone call or something like that. So my question is, number one, how do I get back to it? What can help me, help remind me or help motivate me, to use your word, to get back to this?
That's a great question. Timers, alerts.
Okay.
So you use your phone to set the work period. It goes off. You set the timer for 5 minutes. And as soon as it goes off, that's your cue to go back. When you leave, when your timer goes off that you've done 30 minutes, what I encourage people to do is to jot down a note or two that's in their brain, which will help them get back into the thing they're doing.
Yeah.
So, because you're absolutely right. People forget, right? You go off, you talk to somebody, you're all in your conversation, your phone goes off, you come back to your desk and you're thinking, well, I don't know where I was. That's why you need that little a sentence or two or some key phrases that can help you redirect back into the work you were doing. And it doesn't have to be in the document. You could just do it on a Post-it. I love Post-its for this kind of thing. And you can do one Post-it for each idea. Doesn't matter. That will help you get back.
And I did, now that I think about it, I actually did that when I was inputting things. It got late at night because I usually do it after my work day. I work on other stuff. And so I was getting really sleepy and I thought, I just can't do this anymore. And then I put a little Post-it on there that said, this is where I am. I put it right in the middle of my screen, not down around the edges so I wouldn't see it, but right in the middle of my screen. So when I sat down, it was right there. Now, even if I wasn't going to work on it at that moment, at least it was there and I could put it somewhere so that it would remind me again. So I really like that one. So I also want to ask you about the opposite of this. I know we're going in complete tangents that you didn't expect to go, but that's all right because you are great at this. So let's look at the other extreme. rather, you know, if I set a timer and I go off, so forth and so on. But lots of folks with ADHD are afraid to take a break because they're afraid they're not going to get back to it, even with using a timer or whatever. That's when hyperfocus comes into view, and that's, I'm speaking from this last 24-hour experience when I worked on my finances till 2:30 this morning, which is why my brain's a little foggy today. But I mean, I just want to get it done. I just want to get it done. And of course, I didn't finish it, but I made progress. So how does hyperfocus come into this?
Well, I think hyperfocus can really serve people.
Okay.
But I think you have to ask yourself is, what's happening after an hour? Like, let's say you can hyperfocus for 2 hours.
Okay.
After that mark, your actual ability to produce goes down because your blood, the blood sugar goes down, your brain is working really hard. You know, if you think about it, if you're working on something and you decide, okay, I really do have to take a shower. I just didn't take a shower. It's been 3 hours. And you go take a shower. What often happens is during that time, the brain is still cooking, right? The brain is still cooking. Yeah. And so you will actually come back to your whatever you're doing refreshed. So I think for people who like to hyperfocus, again, the question is, how long is long enough?
Yeah.
And I would say an hour or two. The body itself needs to get up. And I have a very difficult time doing this because if I'm in something, I'm in it. You know, I can write for like 2 hours, and I have to actually remind myself at an hour and a half to get up, do exactly what you do, put on a Post-it of where I am, go to the bathroom, get something to eat, take a little walk, and know that I'm going to keep thinking and come back because my brain is tired. And as we age, particularly women who have so many things to think about all the time, because we are often the engines of our families. And we have everybody's schedules and ideas, you mean like things they have to do, all of that we carry. And so our brains may fatigue in some way that we don't honor. And I think if we could honor it a little bit, it would help us be stronger when we're doing that hyperfocus.
Got it. So our productivity actually increases, is what you're saying.
Exactly.
If we allow, and what you're really talking about is being kind to ourselves. And I am the worst at this. I'll tell you the truth. There are two things I want to mention. One is that this is not, as you might suspect, not a unique situation that I was up till 2:30 working on this. I've done this many times. So if we go back to the planning ahead, I would have to get up when I go to bed. So I'm just teasing. But what I wanted to say was that there are times when I know I have to pee. I really have to pee. No, I can't do it. I'm just so busy. And I'm like, what gets me out of my chair is that I'm about to pee my pants, number one. Right. But the other thing, let me tell you what got me up last night was my dogs. My dogs. Those are the things that got me up because they were whining because they wanted to go out. And what I realized is that not only did my brain need that break, but all of a sudden, I mean, I'm older, my body needed it. have been sitting for a long, long time, and I was like, "Oh, creak," kind of thing. So right. This is only to say that I'm validating absolutely from personal experience exactly what you're saying, and I just need to remind myself to do it. So I think, does that become something that we learn to do? Can we create that habit of doing that?
I'm a big fan of using the technology of the wonders of technology of the age that we live in.
Great.
So, set a timer. I think that even for people who like to hyper focus, it serves you to take a brain and body break. Again, if you have to go to the bathroom and you're not going to the bathroom, think of the energy that's happening in your brain that's trying to manage all of that and in your body. So if you can schedule in, I'm going to work for an hour and a half, but then you're really into something and you can say, okay, I'm giving myself an extra 15 minutes. That's fine, but not to schedule work periods at all makes it harder.
I got it.
For you to reach your maximum productivity.
Great. Thank you so much for that.
You think you're doing it, but your brain fatigues.
All right. Perfect. Thank you. What's next? How do we get this going? How do we finish?
Okay. So, excuse me.
Sure. I think, it's time for a little break to soothe our vocal cords.
Exactly. A drink break. So one of the challenges with motivation is setting realistic goals.
Yeah.
we set goals for ourselves, and particularly women, we're overachieving. As I said, we're the engines of the family. We're managing everybody's schedules. We're trying to deal with their ideas about how they should do things. We're thinking about meals and, everything. And so how do we set realistic goals? I think that, again, we tend to create goals for ourselves that are not achievable because they're too complicated and there's too much packed in. I do this all the time. I think I can accomplish way more in a given period of time than any person could actually do. And I struggle with saying, okay, let's work backwards. How long is it really going to take you to, do X, Y, and Z? Let's be honest. And then you have to add 10 minutes for incidentals, I call them. Because I plan to go to the grocery store. It's going to cost, I planned for 20 minutes at the grocery store last night, ran into a really close friend, had a 10-minute conversation. That was my incidental. It took me 30 minutes. Good thing I had told my husband that I would be home in 30 minutes. But that kind of thing. So I think that we have to set realistic goals. I also think that we have to notice and reward our efforts. Just like we set external rewards for things we don't like to do, we have to reward ourselves when we accomplish steps in something we're working towards finishing. And that might be anything that you like. What I suggest is that people sit down when you're done watching this video and write a list of things that make you happy. Things you love to do, things you like to eat, things you like to read, knitting, making jewelry, watching a favorite show, cooking a particular dish. Make a list of all these things. Keep that list. Post it a couple places. Use it when you accomplish your 2 hours of hyperfocus. Give yourself something nice to do. It's very hard for women to be compassionate with ourselves. We are very, very hard on ourselves. And for women with ADHD, it's twice as bad because women with ADHD grow up hearing about all the ways they miss the mark. And they internalize that. So we as women already have kinds of conversations about not being good enough and not feeling like we are competent and qualified and just generally good people sometimes.
Yeah, absolutely.
And when women have ADHD, they get a whole nother layer of what I call basically crap on top of it, which is not being this, that, or the other, not being the same as other people, not having brains like other people have. And that lowers self-esteem and it lowers the ability to feel worthy. And we're all worthy, right? And we all need confidence. And when we notice what we've accomplished, that's how we build that. And the way that I suggest women do this is before bed every night, or sometime before bed, I guess, if that doesn't work for you. I was gonna say before bed or sometime during the day, maybe before you leave your office, write down something you did that you feel good about. One thing. I mean, ideally it would be 3. I've been doing this for many years, and some days are really hard. Some days are really hard. I might say, I liked the earrings I picked, or I made a good lunch for myself. But I really try, because research has shown that when you start to pay attention to the positives, shift just a little bit each day. And that will help you motivate yourself to do things, because you'll see, wow, I actually do accomplish things.
Exactly. Well, I mean, so what you're really saying is that it really instills self-confidence is what you're really talking about. So when you're shifting that, and oh man, I just forgot what I was going to say, and it was pertinent to what you just said, but that's okay. I lost it. It's all right. So what I'm hearing then is that
self-confidence.
Yeah. So I've lost it, but it's and it's okay. I know. Thank you. I appreciate that, because those little cues can sometimes bring me back, and sometimes it's just gone. So that's all right. So what I'm hearing then is, if we can kind of bring this together, is what I'm hearing is that ADHD women, oh, I know what I was going to say because it was about ADHD women. We have evidence that we're not doing it as well. You know, it continues to reinforce that negative. So I like your idea of reinforcing positive things, because that old saw about what we focus on expands. You know, you keep looking at what you're doing wrong, you're probably going to keep doing things wrong. But if you focus on what's on your earrings, you'll continue to pick out good earrings.
Exactly. That was a rough day. Yeah, that was a few days ago. But you know, I think the other thing is that we have to use everything for our advancement.
Okay.
We have to use things as learning experiences. People will meet with defeats. You'll have the best intentions to motivate yourself, initiate, and you've prioritized and you manage your time, and it still doesn't get done.
Yeah.
Okay. Instead of, you know, berating yourself, take a look and say, okay, what was going on that this happened? This is a good learning experience for me. Why couldn't I do it? What got in the way, and how can I deal with the thing that got in the way, rather than doing a whole character assassination? I'm a bad person. I'm a failure. I can't do what I say I'm going to do.
Mm-hmm.
That's not going to help you. Let's look at what got in the way and how we can alter that.
And sometimes those things that get in the way are completely out of our control, right?
Exactly. Exactly. You know, you can't help it if you run into a traffic jam and you're 10 minutes late for work or 30 minutes late for work. These things happen. And so I think a lot of times where motivation is concerned, we have to remember that other people may give us the benefit of the doubt more than we give ourselves.
Yeah. I suspect that's exactly right. I suspect that's exactly right. So I still want to pull this all together, because we started with intrinsic and extrinsic and motivation and incentives. So pull this together for me so we can have a nice, neat package here.
Okay. There's two types of motivation. There's
right.
Intrinsic motivation. We do something because it feels good. We write a paper because we take time and we write a good paper because we care about the product. We enjoy the process of writing that. Extrinsic motivation, we write a good paper because we want to get a good grade. Okay? Those things can be separate or they can be related.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm using that as an example. It could be a project. I mean, when I say paper, it's not necessarily for school, right?
Oh, sure.
So we have intrinsic motivation and extrinsic motivation. And the intrinsic motivation develops later. Most kids, teenagers, early, maturing young adults, emerging adults, they need external motivators to help them get going. Many people with ADHD need that as well, because they have a now, not now brain. And if the task that you have to do now is not pleasant and it's not appealing, you're going to need that extrinsic motivator, that reward, that incentive that matters.
Okay, to get you started, right? To get you started.
To get you going.
But in order to get started, we also need some ideas about prioritization, and that's when we get into the important and urgent.
So that's kind of the overview.
Yeah.
That's the forest, right?
In Got it.
And you create a routine. You try to stick with it as much as possible.
Cool.
Notice
that's so easy for ADHD folks.
Yes, I know. When you create a very simple routine, like my mornings look like this on the days when I work. On the weekends, they can look like anything, but on my work days, they have to look like this.
Got it.
Because I get a reward by doing that. I feel good about myself, and I get a nice write-up from my boss.
Got it. Cool. Cool.
So, and then the final thing is that you notice the efforts that you're making. You give yourself credit. And you do that by writing it down. And maybe get a little journal at the end of the day, keep it right by your bed. You'll see the journal, which will be your visual cue. You know, and you write it down. You can call it good things. I actually got a journal that says happiness, more happiness and more gratitude. That was, I was like, this is perfect.
Yeah.
I'll remember what to do, right?
Oh, wonderful.
So that's
Wonderful.
how we.
And I think the last piece that you mentioned too is that you don't beat yourself up if you don't get this job, if you don't get the task accomplished, because there are mitigating factors in there that may have influenced your ability to do that, even if you do everything right, as you say.
Exactly. You live with, you offer yourself and live with compassion.
Perfect. That's absolutely perfect. All right, you guys. I'm so thrilled that you were here because it's just been an amazing experience. And I apologize if I threw a little too much of my personal stuff in there. But
no, I'm so glad. I think it's really important for people to hear personal examples because this stuff is sort of abstract.
Yeah.
And we have to keep making it real for people. So it's great that you had examples and I had examples. I think really helps people understand what we're talking about.
Absolutely. Okay, so tell people how they can get a hold of you. First of all, they can find your book at all the major outlets for books at Amazon and all that kind of stuff, and Barnes & Noble. What else?
It's called What Your ADHD Child Wishes You Knew.
Yeah.
You can also find me on my website, drsharonsaline.com. That's drsharonsaline.com.
And spell Saline. Well, actually, you don't have it back here. You only have Sharon. So Saline.
Saline.
Perfect.
Like
Perfect.
Salt solution. So you remember Sharon the salt solution.
Saline, I get it.
Dr. Sharon the salt solution. And then on all the social media outlets, Facebook,
Great.
Twitter, Instagram, etc.
Wonderful. Delighted. So, all right. So if there's
having me, Linda.
Well, if there's one thing you want people to remember, what is it as we leave?
There's one thing I want you to remember is to, wow, that's so hard, is to set yourself up with incentives that matter to you. Chunk things into a doable size and be kind to yourself. Yeah. If you don't meet the goal, look at why.
Yeah. Thank you. Perfect. That's absolutely perfect. Don't forget, you guys, you need to hear this again. Replay it until midnight tomorrow night, and you can do it absolutely free. Buy the Encore package. You can listen to it forever. We don't put any time limits on that. Plus, you get the transcript and the audio for podcast. Hope to see you Saturday. Mwah. Sharon, such a pleasure to have you. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Bye-bye, everybody.
Bye-bye.
The ADHD Women's Palooza is brought to you by Linda Rogley, the AD Diva Network, and AD Diva Retreats, and of course, Little Millie. With deepest gratitude to our distinguished experts who have so generously shared their knowledge this week to help make your ADHD life a little bit better. And a final Palooza thought? When you feel like you don't fit in, just shake it off. Tend to your own feathers and remember, you were destined to stand out.